The bright dots on the radar screen caught Sergeant Paul Wilson by surprise. He blinked twice, then leaned closer to the monitor. 27 objects had appeared seemingly out of nowhere at the edge of the solar system. They were massive and moving in formation. "Sir, you need to see this," Paul called to his supervisor. Captain Greg Nelson walked over, coffee cup in hand. His eyes widened as he looked at the screen. "How long have they been there?" Greg asked. "They just appeared, sir. No approach detected, they're just there." Greg put down his coffee and picked up the red phone. Within minutes, the quiet monitoring station transformed into a center of frantic activity. Scientists, military personnel, and government officials flooded the facility. The objects weren't asteroids or any natural phenomenon. They were ships. Alien ships. News spread quickly. People gathered around televisions and phones, watching as experts tried to explain the situation. No one had answers, only questions. Were the visitors friendly? Why had they come? What did they want? Captain Eric Bennett stood on the bridge of the USS Defender, Earth's most advanced spacecraft. His orders were simple but terrifying. Approach the alien fleet and establish contact. "All systems check complete, Captain," said Lieutenant Kelly. Andrews from her station. Eric nodded. "Take us out, Lieutenant. Nice and slow." The Defender left Earth's orbit, heading toward the unknown visitors positioned just beyond Mars. Eric felt the weight of 7 billion lives on his shoulders. As the first human to make official contact with an alien civilization, his actions could determine the fate of the entire planet. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," Kelly announced. It's in English." Eric straightened his uniform. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a creature unlike anything humans had ever seen. It had 6 limbs, a hard exoskeleton, and compound eyes that reflected the light in strange patterns. Despite its alien appearance, it spoke with perfect clarity. "Greetings, people of Earth. I am Zartek, ambassador of the Navorian Empire. We request a diplomatic meeting with your leaders." Back on Earth, Dr. Lily Forrester worked frantically in her lab at NASA. As the lead xenobiologist, she analyzed the limited data they had on the visitors. "Their biology is fascinating," she told her assistant. "Their exoskeletons appear to be made of a carbon-silicon compound. Nothing like that exists on Earth." She paused, studying a chemical analysis. "But there's something strange about their environmental readings. Why would a species adapted to their conditions choose Earth? We're not compatible with their biology." Her assistant shrugged. "Maybe they just want to be neighbors?" Lily frowned. "When in human history has a technologically superior civilization just wanted to be neighbors?" In Washington, Admiral John Peters met with the president and other world leaders via secure video conference. "The aliens have requested a diplomatic meeting," he explained. "Captain Bennett will rendezvous with them in 12 hours. "Can we trust them?" asked the Russian president. "We don't have much choice," Admiral Peters replied. "Their technology is far beyond ours. If they wanted to attack, they could have done so already." The next day, Captain Bennett boarded the Navorian diplomatic vessel. 2 armed officers accompanied him, though their weapons seemed pointless against beings who could travel between stars. The interior of the alien ship was strange, angles that seemed wrong, lighting that shifted in colors humans rarely saw, and an atmosphere that smelled like metal and something sweet. Zartek greeted them in a large chamber. Several other Navorians stood nearby, their mandibles clicking in what might have been their language. "Captain Bennett, welcome aboard our vessel. We are pleased to establish relations with your species." Eric nodded. "Thank you for the invitation, Ambassador. Earth is curious about your intentions." The alien's compound eyes reflected Eric's image back at him. "Direct. Good. We appreciate efficiency." Zartek gestured to a 3-dimensional display that appeared in the center of the room. "This is Earth, as you know it." The display showed a perfect replica of their planet. Then it changed, showing Earth covered with strange structures and mining operations. "And this is what it will become, a colony of the Navorian Empire." Eric felt his heart pound. "I don't understand. You're saying you want to colonize Earth? What about us?" Zartek made a gesture that might have been the equivalent of a shrug. Some of your population will be useful as labor. The rest will be relocated. Relocated where? Demanded one of Eric's officers. That is not your concern, Zartek replied. Your planet is ideal for our needs. Its resources will serve the Empire well. Eric struggled to keep his voice steady. Ambassador, Earth is our home. We can't simply give it to you. You misunderstand, Captain. This is not a request. It is an explanation of what will happen. Zartek moved closer. We are giving your leaders 1 month to prepare your population for the transition. This is generous. We often provide no warning at all. Back on Earth, Dr. Lily Forrester made a discovery. She rushed into Admiral Peters' office without knocking. They can't breathe our air for long periods, she explained, spreading her findings on his desk. Their exoskeletons show microfractures after exposure to our atmosphere. Something in our air, maybe the nitrogen mix or even our bacteria, damages them over time. Admiral Peters studied the data. So they need environment suits to survive. Here, then why choose Earth? For the minerals, Lily explained. Our planet is rich in elements they need. They don't want to live here. They want to mine it. When Captain Bennett returned to Earth, the news he brought caused worldwide panic. Some people fled to remote areas. Others prayed. Many simply continued their daily lives, unable to process the reality of the situation. World leaders gathered in an emergency United Nations session. For the first time in history, old enemies put aside their differences in the face of extinction. We have 1 month, Admiral Peters told the assembly. 1 month to prepare for a war unlike any we fought before. The Chinese president stood. Their technology is superior. How can we fight them? Because we must, replied Admiral Peters. Dr. Forrester has discovered they have weaknesses, and Captain Bennett brought back valuable data about their ships. In her lab, Lily studied samples taken from the diplomatic meeting. Under her microscope, she watched as Earth bacteria slowly broke down a piece of Navorian tissue. They've never been exposed to our ecosystem, she murmured. They have no immunity to our microbes. Across the planet, factories converted to weapons production. Militaries trained together rather than against each other. Scientists shared discoveries instead of hiding them. Admiral Peters stood at the window of his office, watching the sunset. The Navorian ships were still not visible from Earth, but he knew they were there, waiting. His aide entered with a report. Sir, the Security Council has approved Operation Hornet's Nest. Peters nodded. Then we don't wait for them to come to us. We strike first. As night fell across Earth, humanity prepared for war. They had never been united before. It took the high threat of extinction to bring them together. The Navorians wanted Earth as a colony, but humanity would give them a war instead. The underground bunker hummed with activity. 20 feet below the surface, safe from most surveillance, the world's best minds worked together. Dr. Alan Wright hadn't slept in 36 hours. His eyes burned, and his hands shook slightly as he adjusted the device on his workbench. You need to rest, said his assistant, offering him coffee. Alan shook his head. 3 weeks left. Sleep can wait. The device in front of him looked simple, a metal cylinder with complex circuitry inside, but if his calculations were correct, it could disable Navorian technology with a targeted electromagnetic pulse. Across the room, a team of engineers built prototype weapons based on Captain Bennett's observations of the alien ships. On another, floor communications experts worked to intercept and decode Navorian transmissions. Major Samantha Cruz entered the lab, her uniform crisp despite the late hour. How's progress, Dr. Wright? Getting there, Alan replied. The pulse generator works in testing, but we need to try it against actual Navorian tech to be sure. Samantha nodded. We might have that chance soon. Command is planning something. A different section of the facility, Dr. Lily Forrester continued her research on Navorian biology. The tissue samples from the diplomatic meeting revealed new information daily. Their cellular structure breaks down when exposed to common Earth bacteria, she explained to Admiral Peters, especially Streptococcus and Staphylococcus. Bacteria found on human skin. Could we use that? Asked the Admiral. Lily chose her words carefully. It would be like biological warfare, but they started this. And it's not like we're creating a new disease, we'd just be using what naturally exists here. Admiral Peters looked troubled. Develop it as a last resort. I hope we won't need it. On the surface, life changed dramatically. Cities built underground shelters. Governments stockpiled food and supplies. Military training centers operated around the clock, preparing soldiers for an enemy they'd never fought before. Secretary of Global Defense Henry Collins addressed the world's population through a global broadcast. "We face the greatest threat in human history," he said, his face grave but determined. "But we face it together. For the first time, all nations stand as one. We will not surrender our home without a fight." The broadcast cut to scenes of worldwide preparation. Japanese engineers building defense systems, Brazilian soldiers training with new weapons, Russian and American pilots practicing joint maneuvers. In a high-security server farm, the AI system, called Vera, processed thousands of intercepted Navorian communications. Originally designed for climate modeling, Vera had been repurposed for war. "I've identified patterns in their language," Vera reported through its interface. "They use a mathematical base. I can now translate approximately 60% of their communications." The system operator, a young programmer named Kyle, looked impressed. "What are they saying?" "They're discussing Earth's resources, mineral deposits, water. They're also reporting on human military capabilities, which they consider primitive, and they mention previous conquests." "Previous conquests?" "Yes. I've identified references to 17 other planets they've colonized. Some had intelligent life." Kyle swallowed hard. "What happened to those species?" Vera paused as it processed more data. "Enslaved, used for labor until resources were depleted, then terminated." This information reached the War Council within hours. The heads of all major nations sat around a circular table, faces grim as they reviewed the report. "So negotiation isn't an option," said the German Chancellor. Admiral Peters stood at the front of the room. "It never was. But now we know what happens if we lose." He brought up a holographic display showing Earth's defensive preparations. "Operation Hornet's Nest has 3 phases. First, we hit them before they expect it using Dr. Wright's EMP technology. Second, we deploy our new stealth satellites to target their main ships. Third, we attack with everything we have: air, ground, and sea." The Indian Prime Minister leaned forward. "Will it be enough?" "It has to be," Peters replied simply. Major Samantha Cruz led her team through another training exercise. They moved through a simulated alien ship, weapons ready. The layout was based on Captain Bennett's observations. "Remember, aim for joint areas in their exoskeletons," she instructed. "Their eyes are also vulnerable. And watch the ceiling, they can move on all surfaces." Her team consisted of 50 elite soldiers from different countries, former enemies now working side by side. Different languages, different backgrounds, but united by a common threat. "Again," she ordered when they finished. Faster this time. In orbit, Earth space agencies worked together to position defensive satellites. Disguised as weather and communications equipment, they carried Dr. Wright's EMP weapons and high-energy lasers. Lieutenant Roy Dawson helped supervise the deployment. A third-generation fighter pilot, he would lead the first attack squadron when the time came. "Satellite Zeus 4 is in position," reported a technician. Roy nodded. 23 more to go. Keep them coming." On Earth's surface, civilian engineer, Grace Miller worked with a different approach. In her small lab in Colorado, she developed systems to jam Navorian communications. "Their signals operate on frequencies we've never used," she explained to visiting military officials. "But that makes them easy to identify and disrupt." She demonstrated by activating a device that caused the nearby Navorian signal monitor to go silent. "How long can you block them?" asked a general. "About 6 minutes before they can adapt," Grace replied. "But those could be the most important 6 minutes of the war." As the deadline approached, the Navorian fleet remained positioned beyond Mars. Occasionally, smaller scout ships ventured closer to Earth, observing. Captain Bennett, now promoted to colonel, met with Admiral Peters to review final preparations. Our forces are as ready as they can be, Eric reported. The question is, when do we strike? Admiral Peters studied the tactical display. They expect us to wait until they make the first move. We won't. We attack in 48 hours. Before their deadline? Exactly. They've studied our history. They expect us to try diplomacy until the last moment. They don't expect us to hit them first. News of the decision spread through command channels. Soldiers said goodbye to families. Pilots checked their aircraft one final time. Engineers made last-minute adjustments to weapons. Dr. Alan Wright finally completed his EMP device. Mass production is underway, he told Admiral Peters. We'll have enough for the first wave of fighters. Dr. Lily Forrester prepared defensive measures, air filters for military bases, protective coatings for equipment. Her biological weapon remained sealed in a secure lab, ready if needed. Vera continued monitoring Navorian communications. Their fleet is preparing to move, the AI reported. They plan to begin their approach in 72 hours. Too late, said Admiral Peters. We'll be coming to them first. At military bases worldwide, pilots received their final briefing. Lieutenant Roy Dawson addressed his squadron. This isn't just about us, he told them. It's about everyone who ever lived on Earth and everyone who ever will. We're fighting for our entire history and our entire future. As night fell across Earth for perhaps the last time in human history, billions of people looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, the fate of their world hung in the balance. The Navorians had come expecting an easy conquest. What they would get instead was humanity fighting for its survival. Lieutenant Roy Dawson sat in the cockpit of his fighter, running through final checks. The newly installed EMP weapon system glowed with a soft blue light on his dashboard. Around him, 23 other pilots prepared their aircraft. None of them had ever flown a combat mission against an alien species before. All systems green, Roy reported. Strike Force Alpha ready for launch. In the command center, Admiral Peters gave the final authorization. Operation Hornet's Nest is a go. Good luck and Godspeed. The fighters launched silently from bases around the world, climbing high into the atmosphere. They used minimal communications and kept their systems in passive mode to avoid detection. The plan relied on surprise. Roy led his squadron toward the rendezvous point in high orbit. Through his viewport, he could see Earth below, blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown landmasses. Everything humanity had ever known or built was on that small ball floating in space. Remember your training, he told his pilots. Hit the targets with the EMP first, then follow up with conventional weapons while they're disabled. In her underground facility in Colorado, Grace Miller prepared to activate her jamming system. Technicians monitored equipment that would block Navorian communications at the precise moment the attack began. System charged at 98%, reported a technician. Grace nodded, her fingers hovering over the activation switch. Ready on your command. High above Earth, the fighters reached their jump point. From here, they would use the new engines developed from studying Navorian technology to make a short, faster-than-light jump to the alien fleet's position beyond Mars. All wings report in, Roy ordered. One by one, the squadron leaders confirmed their readiness. American, Russian, Chinese, European, and Indian pilots, the best from every nation, prepared to fight together. Strike Force Alpha. Prepare for Gyar. Jump in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The stars blurred around them as the fighters made the jump. When they emerged, the Navorian fleet filled their view screens, massive ships that dwarfed anything humans had ever built, arranged in a precise formation. They haven't detected us yet, Roy said, checking his sensors. Weapons hot. Grace, start jamming now. In her facility, Grace activated the system. Jamming active. You have 6 minutes. The fighters accelerated toward the alien fleet, which still showed no signs of alarm. The Navorians, confident in their technological superiority, had not expected an attack, and certainly not one using their own technology against them. EMP range in 10 seconds, Roy announced. Fire on my mark. Mark. 24 fighters fired simultaneously. Dr. Wright's devices activated, sending targeted electromagnetic pulses toward the Navorian ships. The effect was immediate. Lights flickered across the alien vessels. Some smaller ships went completely dark, drifting out of formation. "It's working!" shouted one of the pilots. "Their systems are going down!" "Second wave, move in," Roy ordered. Another group of fighters appeared from their jump point, targeting more of the fleet. The Navorians were beginning to respond, but their communications remained jammed and many of their weapon systems were offline. On the Navorian command ship, Fleet Commander Kralvox struggled to understand what was happening. Warning lights flashed across control panels as systems failed. "Primitive humans," he hissed to his officers. "They dare attack us? Restore weapons and communications." His technology officers worked frantically to bring systems back online, but the human attack had caught them completely unprepared. Back on Earth, Admiral Peters watched the battle through data transmitted from the fighters. "The first phase is working better than we hoped," he told the War Council. "Now for Phase 2. He sent the command to activate the stealth satellites. In orbit around Mars, hidden from Navorian sensors, the satellites powered up their weapon systems. Roy's fighters continued their attack, focusing on the smaller Navorian vessels. "Target their engine sections," he instructed his squadron. "Use the weak points Captain Bennett identified." The human fighters were smaller and more maneuverable than the alien ships. They darted between the massive vessels, firing precisely at vulnerable areas. Several Navorian scout ships exploded as their damaged engines overloaded. In the command center, a communications officer reported, "Sir, one of the alien ships is breaking away from the fleet. It appears damaged. Trajectory indicates it will enter Earth's atmosphere." General Frank Hayes, commander of ground forces, stepped forward. "We've been preparing for this. Send the coordinates to Strike Team Bravo. We'll capture that ship and whatever technology we can salvage." As the battle continued in space, Major Samantha Cruz led her Special Forces team to the projected landing site in the Australian outback. They moved quickly, setting up a perimeter around the area where the Navorian ship was expected to crash. "Remember, we need samples and technology," she told her team. "Be careful with your weapons. We don't want to damage anything valuable." The Navorian scout ship appeared in the sky as a ball of fire, trailing smoke as it plummeted toward Earth. It crashed with tremendous force, digging a trench 300 meters long before coming to rest. Samantha's team approached cautiously, weapons ready. The ship's hull had cracked open, exposing its interior. From inside came a sound, the clicking language of the Navorians. "Survivors," Samantha whispered. "Masks on. Remember Dr. Forrester's warning about their vulnerability to our bacteria." Her team moved in, securing the crash site. 2 Navorian crew members were alive, though injured. They reacted with surprise at the sight of humans wearing environmental protection gear. Clearly, they hadn't expected humans to know about their biological weakness. In space, Roy's fighters continued their assault. "Grace, status on the jamming?" he asked. 2 minutes left before they adapt," she replied. "Make them count." The stealth satellites joined the attack, firing high-energy beams at the larger Navorian vessels. The aliens were beginning to organize a defense, but they remained disoriented and struggling to communicate. "All fighters, complete your attack runs and prepare to jump back to Earth," Roy ordered. "We've done what we came to do." The fighters made their final passes, launching missiles at key targets before turning away. Behind them, the Navorian fleet was in disarray. Several ships destroyed, many more damaged, and their carefully arranged formations scattered. On the command ship, Kralvox watched furiously as the human fighters disappeared into faster-than-light jumps. "They will pay for this," he growled. "Forget the waiting period. Prepare all remaining ships for immediate invasion." His officers hurried to comply, but the damage was extensive. Systems that should have taken minutes to repair would now require hours. The humans had bought themselves valuable time. As Roy's fighters returned to Earth, cheers erupted in command centers worldwide. The first phase of Operation Hornet's Nest had been a success beyond expectations. Admiral Peters didn't join the celebration. "They'll be coming now," he told his officers, "and they'll be angry. Prepare all defenses. The real battle is about to begin." At the crash site in Australia, Samantha's team secured the Navorian survivors and began extracting technology from the ship. Every piece they recovered could help in the coming fight. "Major Cruz," called one of her soldiers. "You need to see this." He pointed to a display inside the ship showing what appeared to be invasion plans, targeting major cities, population centers, military bases. The attack would be massive and merciless. Samantha took pictures of the display and sent them immediately to command. "Get Dr. Wright down here," she ordered, "and Dr. Forrester. They need to see this technology firsthand." As dawn broke over different parts of Earth, humanity prepared for the Navorian response. They had struck the first blow, but the war was just beginning. The aliens who had come expecting an easy conquest had received a shocking message. Earth would not surrender without a fight. The sky turned red over New York as the Navorian ships entered Earth's atmosphere. Their massive hulls blocked the sun, casting dark shadows across the city. People ran through the streets, seeking shelter in subway tunnels and basements. "Emergency!" Sirens wailed, a constant reminder of the danger above. Daniel Ross watched from the window of his apartment. At 32, the former police officer had never imagined he would witness an alien invasion. He grabbed his emergency bag and headed for the door. The building shook as the first explosions hit nearby. "They're targeting infrastructure," he told his neighbors as they gathered in the stairwell. "Power plants, bridges, communication centers, we need to get underground." Similar scenes played out in cities around the world: London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, Rio, all under simultaneous attack. The Navorians had abandoned their original plan for a gradual takeover and now sought quick, overwhelming victory. In the White House Situation Room, President Susan Morgan received reports from global defense stations. "Civilian casualties are high," said Secretary Collins, his face grim. "They're hitting population centers hard." Admiral Peters pointed to the tactical display. "Their strategy is to destroy our ability to coordinate resistance, but they don't know about our backup systems." Underground, beneath the Rocky Mountains, the secondary command center continued operations even as the primary military bases were destroyed above. From here, Admiral Peters directed what remained of Earth's conventional forces. "Deploy our remaining air defenses," he ordered, "and activate all submarine fleets." Commander Keith Martinez received the orders aboard the USS Barracuda, submerged, deep in the Pacific Ocean. His submarine was one of 50 worldwide that had been modified with new weapons based on Navorian technology. "Prepare to surface and fire," he told his crew. "Target the alien ships over San Francisco." The submarines around the world fired their new weapons simultaneously. The missiles streaked upward, carrying Dr. Wright's improved EMP devices. Several Navorian ships lost power and crashed into the ocean. Others managed to maintain enough systems to stay airborne but lost their weapons capabilities. On the main Navorian command ship, Kralvox received the damage reports with growing anger. "How are they still able to coordinate attacks?" he demanded. "Find their command centers." His second-in-command, Ground Forces Commander Vex Nar, studied the tactical displays. "The humans are more resourceful than expected, and our troops on the ground report higher than anticipated resistance." "Crush them harder," Kralvox ordered. "Level their cities if necessary." In New York, Daniel Ross led a group of survivors through the subway tunnels. Above them, Navorian ground forces had taken control of the streets. The aliens moved in squads, their 6 limbs allowing them to climb buildings and move across difficult terrain with ease. "Where are we going?" asked an elderly man in Daniel's group. "To the resistance meeting point," Daniel replied. "There are more of us organizing underground. We're not beaten yet." Throughout the occupied territories, similar resistance groups formed. They used the subway systems, sewer tunnels, and old bunkers to move unseen by the invaders. What the Navorians didn't realize was that humans had been preparing for war for generations, not against aliens, but against each other. Those preparations now served a greater purpose. In her hidden laboratory, Dr. Patricia Wells worked frantically to develop her biological weapon. The Navorian tissue samples showed increasing vulnerability to Earth's bacteria. "Their immune systems can't adapt quickly enough," she explained to her team. "We can use this." A military officer overseeing the project looked concerned. "Is this ethical?" It's essentially germ warfare. Patricia's face hardened. They're trying to exterminate us. Ethics went out the window when they attacked civilian targets. She held up a canister containing a concentrated mixture of bacteria commonly found on human skin. This won't harm us, but it will make them very sick, possibly kill them. The biological weapon was distributed to resistance fighters in occupied territories. Daniel's group in New York received their shipment through an old pneumatic tube system that once carried mail beneath the city. Place these near their air filtration systems, the messenger instructed, handing over small canisters. Their environmental suits can't filter everything. As the invasion entered its second week, the Navorians controlled much of Earth's surface, but they faced growing problems. Their troops were falling ill in increasing numbers. Human resistance fighters attacked, supply lines and communication relays, and the Navorian ships were taking damage from continued submarine attacks. Commander Vexenar reported to Kralvox with disturbing news. Our ground forces are experiencing a health crisis. Something in this planet's environment is making them sick. Kralvox dismissed the concern. Increase their medication. Push forward with the occupation. It's not that simple, Vexenar insisted. The illness is spreading rapidly. Some units have lost 50% effectiveness. In Australia, Major Samantha Cruz's team used knowledge gained from the captured Navorian ship to develop better tactics. They discovered that the aliens had poor vision in certain light spectrums and relied heavily on heat signatures to track targets. Wear these cooling suits, she instructed her soldiers, and use these lights to disorient them. Her team conducted raids on Navorian outposts, capturing more technology and freeing human prisoners. Each success built momentum for the resistance. Beneath the ocean's surface, Commander Martinez coordinated with other submarine captains. The Navorians had begun targeting the seas, looking for the source of the attacks on their ships. Maintain silent running, he ordered his fleet. Strike only when you have clear targets. The submarines became humanity's most effective weapon, hidden, mobile, and armed with technology the Navorians couldn't easily counter. In New York, Daniel's resistance cell carried out their first major operation. They infiltrated a Navorian command post established in what had been Grand Central Station. Moving silently through maintenance tunnels, they planted Patricia's bacterial canisters near the aliens' air systems. We have 4 minutes before the security scan cycles, Daniel whispered to his team. Plant the devices and get out. They completed their mission just in time, retreating to the tunnels as Navorian guards passed by. Within hours, the aliens in the command post began showing signs of illness. Their exoskeletons developed small fractures and their movements became sluggish. Similar attacks occurred in occupied cities worldwide. The Navorians, who had come expecting to find primitives, instead faced an enemy that used the invaders' own weaknesses against them. At her monitoring station, Olivia Parker made an important discovery. The communications specialist had been studying Navorian transmissions since the invasion began. Their network has patterns, she told her superiors. Predictable security protocols. I think I can break in. Given authorization, Olivia worked day and night to hack into the alien battle network. Success would mean being able to predict Navorian movements and possibly disrupt their commands. As the third week of invasion began, the tide started to turn. Navorian ground forces were decimated by illness. Their ships faced constant harassment from submarines and remaining air forces, and the human resistance grew stronger each day. Commander Vexenar again approached Kralvox with urgent concerns. The humans know our weaknesses. They're using biological agents against our troops. We need to withdraw and reassess. Kralvox's compound eyes flashed with anger. Withdraw? Never. Bring in the second wave. We will not be defeated by these primitives. But, as he gave the order, Vexenar knew the truth. The easy conquest they had expected had become a war they might not win. The humans fought with a desperation and creativity the Navorians had never encountered before. What should have been a simple colonization had become the fight of their lives. Scott Freeman checked the systems of his experimental spacecraft one final time. The Vengeance was unlike any ship humans had built before, a hybrid of Earth technology and reverse-engineered Navorian systems. It represented humanity's best hope for taking the fight back to the invaders. All systems green, he reported to Mission Control. Ready for launch. Godspeed, Scott, replied Admiral Peters. Remember, this is reconnaissance only. Get in, map their fleet positions, and get out, Scott nodded. Though he knew the mission might require more than just observation, the Vengeance carried powerful weapons, including an enhanced version of Dr. Wright's EMP device. As the ship launched from its hidden facility beneath the Antarctic ice, Scott thought about how much had changed in the month since the invasion began. Earth's cities lay in ruins, millions were dead, but humanity had not surrendered. Instead, they had adapted, learned, and begun to fight back effectively. In orbit, the Vengeance activated its cloaking system. Technology adapted from the captured Navorian scout ship. Scott guided the craft toward the main alien fleet, which had pulled back to a defensive position after suffering heavy losses. Meanwhile, communications specialist Olivia Parker made the breakthrough she had been working toward. After weeks of studying Navorian transmissions, she managed to access their battle network. "I'm in," she announced to the team gathered around her workstation. "I can see their fleet deployments, communication channels, everything." Admiral Peters leaned closer to her screen. "Can you disrupt their commands?" "Better," Olivia replied with a tired smile. "I can send false orders that look like they're coming from their own commanders." This development changed everything. Combined, with Scott's mission and the biological weapon now spreading through Navorian ranks, Earth finally had the means to launch a coordinated counterattack. President Susan Morgan addressed the United Earth government from their underground headquarters. "Today we begin Operation Thunderstrike," she told the assembled leaders. "For weeks we've been on the defensive. Now we take the fight to them." The plan was ambitious but built on proven tactics. Dr. Wells' biological weapon would be deployed across all remaining Navorian ground forces. Olivia would use her access to disrupt their communications and send contradictory orders, and Scott would gather critical intelligence on the fleet's vulnerabilities. In New York, Daniel Ross led his resistance fighters in preparation for their part in the operation. "Once the attack begins, we target their ground commanders," he explained, pointing to a map of Navorian positions. "Without leadership, their troops will be disorganized." His team had grown from a handful of survivors to hundreds of trained fighters. Similar groups existed in every occupied city, waiting for the signal to rise up together. Beneath the ocean, Commander Martinez readied his submarine fleet for what might be their final mission. "We'll surface simultaneously and target their largest ships," he told his captains via secure communication. "Hit them with everything we have." Aboard the Vengeance, Scott reached the edge of the Navorian fleet. His sensors recorded detailed information about their ships, focusing on potential weaknesses. What he saw gave him hope. Many vessels showed signs of damage from previous battles and hurried repairs. "Their fleet is in worse shape than we thought," he reported back to Earth. "Nearly 30% of their ships are operating at reduced capacity." As he turned to leave, his sensors detected a massive vessel arriving from faster-than-light travel, a new Navorian ship, larger than any seen before. "Command, we have a problem," Scott transmitted. "They've received reinforcements." The new arrival was the personal flagship of High Commander Zextol, supreme leader of the Navorian invasion force. Frustrated by Kralvox's failure to quickly subdue Earth, Zextol had come to take direct command. On Earth, Admiral Peters received Scott's warning but didn't waver. The operation proceeds as planned. All forces prepare for synchronized attack. Olivia began her part of the mission, sending false retreat orders to Navorian ground units and conflicting commands to their ships. The aliens, already struggling, with Earth's bacteria affecting their troops, now faced chaos in their command structure. At precisely 0700 hours global time, Operation Thunderstrike began. Resistance fighters in every occupied city rose up simultaneously. Submarines surfaced and fired on the Navorian fleet, and major cruises special forces equipped with technology from the captured scout ship launched a daring raid on the Navorian command center in what had been Geneva. From the Vengeance, Scott watched the battle unfold below. He should have left, completed his reconnaissance mission. But he couldn't abandon Earth during its most critical fight. Instead, he turned his ship toward the massive new flagship. "Command, I'm engaging the enemy command vessel," he transmitted. "They can't be allowed to organize a defense." "Negative, Scott," Admiral Peters responded. "You can't take on that ship alone." But Scott had already made his decision. The Vengeance accelerated toward Zextool's flagship, weapons charging. On the Navorian command ship, High Commander Zextool received confused reports from his forces. "Our ground troops are retreating without orders," reported an officer. And, "Our ships are receiving contradictory commands." Zextool's compound eyes narrowed. "Lock down all communication systems. Use direct courier drones. The humans have infiltrated our network." But the warning came too late. Throughout Earth's atmosphere and in orbit, Navorian ships fired on each other, following false orders sent by Olivia. Ground forces abandoned strategic positions, believing they were ordered to regroup. Major Cruz's team reached the heart of the Geneva Command Center, fighting their way through confused Navorian guards. They planted Dr. Wright's super EMP device near the central power core. "Charges set," Samantha reported. "We have 5 minutes to clear the area." As her team retreated, they faced heavy resistance from Navorians who realized what was happening. 2 of her soldiers fell, but the rest made it to the extraction point as the EMP detonated. The entire command center went dark, cutting off control to thousands of Navorian troops. In space, Scott maneuvered the Vengeance close to Zextool's flagship, evading defensive fire. His ship was smaller and more agile, but the alien vessel's weapons were devastating. "One shot," he muttered to himself, targeting the flagship's main power core. "That's all I need." The Vengeance took heavy damage as Scott lined up his attack run. Systems failed across his ship, but the weapons remained operational. He fired the enhanced EMP directly at the flagship's vulnerable section, then pulled away as explosions rippled across the massive alien vessel. On Earth, people watched the space battle through telescopes and surviving monitoring systems. When Zextool's flagship went dark and began drifting, cheers erupted from resistance bases worldwide. The Navorian forces, leaderless and suffering from Earth's biological defenses, began to falter. Human fighters pushed them back from city after city. Submarines continued to target their ships. Within 48 hours, the aliens who had come to conquer Earth were in full retreat. High Commander Zextool, his flagship crippled but not destroyed, ordered all remaining forces to withdraw. "This planet is not worth the losses," he transmitted to his fleet. "We will return to Imperial space." As the Navorian ships limped away from Earth, Admiral Peters addressed the unified command. "They're retreating, but this isn't over," he warned. "They'll return with a larger force." President Morgan nodded solemnly. "Then we'll be ready. We've learned how to fight them now, and we'll be stronger next time." In the weeks that followed, humanity began rebuilding. Cities emerged from the rubble. Nations remained united, knowing they were stronger together than apart. And scientists studied every piece of alien technology they could salvage, preparing for the inevitable return of the Navorians. Scott Freeman, recovering from injuries sustained during his attack on the flagship, received the highest honors Earth could bestow. But as he looked up at the stars during his recovery, he knew the greatest challenges still lay ahead. They wanted Earth as a colony, he told a visiting Admiral Peters, but humanity gave them a war instead. Peters nodded. "And next time we'll give them an even bigger one." Earth had changed forever. No longer alone in the universe, humanity now understood both the dangers and opportunities that lay among the stars. They had survived their first contact with an alien civilization, not through diplomacy or surrender, but through unity, determination, and the will to fight for their home. Whatever came next, they would face it together.